So when it comes to giving handouts to the rich, Leo Varadkar's like Oprah Winfrey on her show. He's like, you get a handout, you get a handout, you all get a handout. But some poor worker on a precarious contract and on low pay goes to Leo Varadkar, oh, could you help me pay my rent? Because we've got this pandemic and I've lost my job. And actually, I'm not even sure if I can go back to the job because the business has gone bust. It's like a scene from Oliver Twist. Please, sir, can I have some more? And Varadkar's like, no. Scroungers, welfare cheats. I mean, the mask slipped very quickly, didn't it? A couple of weeks ago it was all, we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. Now it's all about greedy workers getting more on the COVID-19 payment than they are in their crappy jobs. How are we going to push them back into precarious work? Varadkar said it's not fair that some workers are getting more on the COVID-19 payment than they did in their job. He said it's the free money argument, and it's coming from the left and the right. And there's no such thing as free money, and there's no such thing as a free lunch. Unless that is, of course, you're a member of the Irish elite, a vulture fund, a developer, or a landlord, or the banks. I mean, then there's a free lunch whenever you need it. And never mind the fact that the taxpayers pay Leo Varadkar's wage. He's one of the highest paid politicians in the world, and we're only a small country. He gets over 200,000 a year. Never mind all the expenses that they claim. Many free lunches has he got. Do you remember in 2008 when the banks went knocking on the door? Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael were only too happy to give the bankers a free lunch. 64 billion it cost. That's 14 grand a head for every man, woman and child in this country. Or there was a free lunch for developers when NAMA bailed them out. For years we were spending 11 million a year paying the same developers who'd gone bankrupt. 3 of the developers were paid 200,000 a year to look after their former portfolios. In the end, NAMA cost 77 billion. 68 billion in loans and the rest in interest. Although they eventually sold some of that property off and made the money back, it was sold at a discount to the likes of Johnny Ronan, who got his hand on Spencer Dock. Or remember, vulture funds like Cerberus, or the biggest landlord in Ireland, Iris Ria, who got their hands on properties all over this country at a knockdown price and then started demanding exorbitant rents from people, producing one of the biggest housing crises we've ever seen. That was the result of us giving a free lunch and free money to the developers. So there seems to be lots of free money, lads, but it's only if you're already rich. And what about landlords? They get $500 million a year in taxpayers' cash through HAP and through RAS. And then there's free lunches if you're a vulture fund or a corporation. Let's look at the big pharmaceutical companies. The people who'll be lining up to sell us a vaccine for COVID-19 at a high marked up price. Because God forbid the countries of the world could actually get together and produce it publicly. Abbott, the big pharma company, made 1.2 billion in profits in 2015. How much did they pay in tax in Ireland? 0. That was a gift of 155 million. The biggest scam of all was the Apple tax. The tax owed to us, plus interest, comes to 19 billion. That's enough to keep the COVID-19 payment to workers going for a whole year. And the biggest landlords in Ireland right now are the vulture funds. In 2018, Iris Ria, the Canadian vulture fund that is now Ireland's biggest landlord, made 119.8 million in profits and paid no tax. And there's a whole line of Irish rich people like Dennis O'Brien and Larry Goodman who line up for the free money from the Irish state that's available if you're a developer, a vulture fund or a rich person like them. Remember that Goodman and Dennis O'Brien own many of the private hospitals across the country. And up to September, we're going to give those private hospitals 700 million. The reason the COVID-19 payment was set at 350 is because people can't pay their rent on that and less. So the fact that Varadkar admits that many of those people who are on minimum wage jobs are getting more on the payment than they were in their crap job is indicative of the real nature of the recovery that Varadkar boasts so much about. The recovery was based on precarious work, on low paid work, on people working long hours for very little pay. And Varadkar knows that many of the companies that these people work for have folded and won't be reopening. So how can people be punished and told that their COVID-19 payment's going to be cut if they don't take up work, when the work's not there to take up in the first place. But Varadkar knows this. He just wants people to be whipped into taking whatever job they have to. This is this Victorian attitude towards the working class, that we have to be made into obedient slaves and punished if we don't do what we're told. There's 1.2 million people in this country in deprivation. Many of them are working poor. I mean, what a gross phrase, working poor. You're working away, but you can't afford the basic necessities. At the same time, the top 300 people, just 300 people, the top 300 people have 87 billion in wealth. Leo Varadkar started the COVID-19 crisis by saying we're all in it together. But in reality, he's a class warrior for the rich in this country, and he has no problem giving them handouts whenever they need it. He doesn't represent working people, he only represents the rich. He wants to be like his hero, Maggie Thatcher, another class warrior for the rich. But even Thatcher was brought down by popular protest and people power, with the poll tax riots in 1991. And Leo Varadkar better watch his mouth, or he'll suffer the same fate, because he's no Maggie Thatcher. And the water charges movement shows we're just as capable of protest as anybody else is.